Hey guys, something different. I thought it would be fun to come on and do a little something different than I normally do because I don't normally show myself. And so I thought I would make a quick video. I'll show Janica before the end of the video as well. But I wanted to come on because there's a lot going on in the doll community. I'm noticing a lot of changes with collectors talking about, either wanting more dolls for the collection or wanting less dolls. And, it's just something that I have actually experienced. So I thought it would be kind of nice just to talk about it. And as a collector, I've collected for so many years that I can shed some light on my perspective of things because I've evolved as a collector for the many years that I've been collecting. I have changed how I collect, what I like to collect, my style of collecting. Like, I think as collectors we're ever evolving, just like the community and the way dolls have evolved over the years. I think how we collect is also evolving. And I don't think people talk about it a whole lot. I think people just kind of keep most of it, like the style of their collecting, to themselves, unless they're, doing a tag or, I don't know. I don't know whether it's like taboo to talk about, like how many dolls we have or things like that. So I'm not afraid to share the information. I'm actually, it actually came up because I've been watching other people's channels who are experiencing this. And that's why I think that it's important for people to know that, as you grow as a collector, things change. So when I first started out collecting dolls, it was just, there were no silicones, it was one-of-a-kind babies, it was, vinyl reborns had just kind of gotten super popular, and the number of people that were collecting dolls were very little, so the community was very small. And for me, I, just like everybody else that's new and excited about, oh wow, these realistic dolls, and trust me, they weren't nearly as realistic back then as they are now. And I would buy and buy and buy and buy to the point where I had, gosh, I want to say that I probably had upwards of at least $20 at one point in time. And looking back on it, just even saying that out loud, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine having $20 all at the same time in one space. Like, I don't even remember where I was keeping them all. But it was mostly, a couple of one-of-a-kind dolls and mostly reborns. And they were so much cheaper than even the well-done ones, like the best of all of the best artists putting dolls out. They just, the driving up the prices weren't there because the community of buyers were so small. And, you could afford more dolls. So I noticed that probably for the first, gosh, how many years? Probably a good solid 5 years. I just kept buying and kept buying and kept buying. I, wasn't being realistic. I wasn't happy because, I wanted better, nicer, and because, artists' abilities grew so quickly and their talent, grew so quickly, that I just kept buying the next nicer baby, the next nicer baby, the next nicer baby, and I didn't really sell them to bring home a new one at the time. I would just acquire more and more and more, which is crazy. And then at some point in time, I think it was right around when silicone dolls came out, I think that's when I saw a big hike in pricing. So prices really jumped up because the cost of making them, and they were so new that, then I had to start thinking about, okay, so how am I going to afford one of these babies, especially when the full body silicone dolls came out, because when partial silicones, that was the first silicones out in the market, they were still fairly affordable, but still a higher price point, and I could still manage to bring a couple of those home. I honestly mainly only bought Claire Taylor silicone dolls when she first started making her silicone babies. And then when full body silicone dolls came onto the market and, artists were advertising that they were going to be putting out editions, that's when you could, purchase a spot or reserve a spot on the list. And then I realized the prices had jumped like tremendously because one, they're way more labor intensive, you know, all of that. So then I started trying to changing. I think that's when the real time frame that I started becoming a little bit more economic and also being a little bit more realistic of what number of dolls worked for me was when silicone, full body silicone babies came out on the market, because I had to, one, be able to afford them, and two, I was running out of space. I've always had a doll nursery. I've been lucky enough, I've been fortunate enough in every house that I have lived in, other than the very first house when I was collecting very early on, I had a space for my dolls. I had a separate room in which to keep them in. So it was easy to let it kind of overflow with babies. But then, I don't know, it was the planning in mind when, I think it was when I was on the list for the Janica sculpt. The very first list back in the day, she was like the first full body silicone other than Julie Malloy's first full body silicones. That's when Claire came out with Janica. And I remember reserving my spot on the list and really kind of rearranging how I wanted my nursery to be. And it, you know, it just started evolving how I was as a collector and what I wanted in my collection. So then I started selling babies. And it's a very weird feeling to have so many of them and you're attached to them in one way or another. It's not like because you have more dolls you're not as attached. That's just not how it works, unfortunately. We all have a bond, and there's something that draws us to every baby that we bring into our collection. But the thought process was, one, I have to get some more income to be able to afford paying for the more expensive dolls. So then I started selling a lot of my reborns, and I have to say that at first it was very hard to part with a few of them, and then after that happened and I freed up some more space, I don't know what happened other than it felt good. And then I became aware of the fact that the less I had in my collection, the more time I felt I could, you know, give to the ones that I had, versus feeling overwhelmed. And there's times that I wouldn't even go into the doll room because it just felt too overwhelming for me. There's too much in there. It was like, I don't know, I just felt overwhelmed. And so once I got the doll number down below like 10, I started feeling really, really good about having less. And I wanted to go in the doll room more often. And then, you know, it just, I think that was the point in time that it really changed for me. And I became aware of the fact that I'm more of a minimalist. So I kind of went to the side of less is more. So I'm going to spend more on a nicer quality doll and have a lesser number of them. So I think that's when that really happened for me. And then once I really got hooked on full body silicones, I mean, listen, silicone, the medium silicone really isn't for every collector. Every collector kind of has their favorites, and some collectors like a little bit of everything, which is awesome if that's what works for you. But I have found that the medium of silicone itself really, I think it's like my favorite medium. I think it, you know, for me who's looking for the ultimate realism in every doll that I have, silicone really is the way to go. So as beautiful as the painting is, and I've enjoyed a lot of vinyl reborns, it's the feel of them that doesn't feel lifelike enough for me. No matter how great the painting is, it was always a detractor to have, you know, the cold, stiffer feel, which is also why one of a kinds, I think, have gone out the door. I mean, you don't ever see or hear anything about them anymore because people don't want them. And everybody's hooked on silicone or at least vinyl reborns. So I think once I realized that silicone was the medium for me, I then got rid of pretty much all of my reborns. I would keep like one or two around, I think. I did for a long time. And I've kind of seen a lot come and go as I go back and I review like my videos. It's kind of funny because I go in these, I go in cycles where I miss having a reborn because I can dress them more and handle them more, and it won't affect, like, you know, it won't damage them and things like that. Not that a good sturdy, you know, silicone shouldn't be able to be changed regularly, but it is just a different feel. There's a little bit more security there, and being able to interact with the doll more frequently if it's a vinyl reborn versus a silicone. But ultimately, I always end up getting rid of them all. It's just how I am as a collector. And then when I made the decision, it's not even that long ago that I decided that, you know what, I'm just going to get rid of, you know, most every one of my dolls, and I'm just going to stick with like one or two. And that was also like a hard transition for me, because I'm like, oh, is this the right decision? It feels so strange. I don't know if this is going to make me happy, or if I'm going to feel like I don't have enough. But as soon as I got down to one doll, which is what I've been at, I don't count Amy. I don't count my one-of-a-kind doll is, you know, like an active member of my collection, because I don't handle her. She really is for looks only. She always will be. So I have reborns that are stowed away that I'll never get rid of, but those are also not part of my everyday collection. Really, my collection is Janica. And prior to that was Marley. And prior to that was another doll. So my pattern really has become that one doll feels great to me. A lot of collectors don't feel that way. A lot of collectors feel like they're missing out on something if they only have one doll. And then I see and notice more than it used to be, that more people are kind of going in that direction, where they're getting down to one or two dolls, or, you know, one from every medium, and just going with that. And I've noticed that that's become a bigger trend. So for me, I've realized that, you know, sticking with the one doll really works best for me. And it's changed as the years have progressed. And I might change back and change my whole way of thinking and go, wow, I need more dolls. Like right now I'm kind of in the mode where I enjoy the one doll, but I would like to have another doll. I'd like to have a sleeper. So I can have one awake, one asleep, so that, because I am more comfortable taking a sleeper out in public more than I am an awake baby, because it's just more realistic. And I don't like to draw attention to myself. I don't want people to know they're dolls. So it's that whole thing. So I'm still kind of toying with having that second doll, but it would still be a minimalist thing. You know, I have room in the nursery. It's not going to be overcrowded. I have more than one spot for one baby. But, you know, I think that it's natural for us to kind of go through these things. And also, let's face it, as the cost of full body silicones has gone up so much, I can actually only afford and feel comfortable paying a certain amount for a doll, and having that amount of money tied up in a doll sitting in my nursery at a time. That's also what it is for me. I've realized that it's a huge investment, and I want the best, but I can't have everything, and I can't have every doll out there. So I've had to settle with the fact that, you know, one, we've been renovating our house for, it seems like since the day we moved in. And renovations, we have projects we do every year. The house is still not finished, and it probably won't be for a number of years. Part of homeownership and buying an older house and renovating it. So that to me is also a reasoning behind, is I have huge other expenses. I have two daughters that I want to try to get through college. You know, all of these things are factors that kind of take a priority. So that's also affected how my doll collecting has been over the years. So there's many factors. So, you know, there's nothing to say that, you know, a year from now I'm going to have 10 babies, because that could happen. Let's face it, it could happen. I don't know if it'll really happen, but something to kind of keep in mind, that, you know, we're always ever evolving. And I think it's very natural for that to happen, to kind of go through swings of having many dolls and maybe not so many dolls. But it's very interesting, and it's something I think that it's okay to talk about. We also have financial things that come up that people don't like to talk about, but it really is truly, you know, dolls take a back seat to those needs in our lives. And I think that that also affects how we collect dolls and things like that. But yeah, so there's my talk for the day. I thought it would be something different, just to kind of, come on, show my face. I'm a little bit of a hot mess this morning, so I just put my hair up, and I'm not doing a whole lot other than I worked out this morning, and that's about it. But I'm enjoying my time off. It's been great. So stay tuned. There'll be more videos to come,